Some backstory before I begin. These events started when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, 2002 or 2003-ish, and ended during the fall of 2015. I'm a 21-year-old female living in Canada. RCMP equals Royal Canadian Mounted Police. When I was in elementary school, I was friends with a girl named Jessica. We had a group of 5 or 6 girls that we always played with. Jessica's parents were divorced, and I often went over to her dad's house after school because they had a trampoline and a slide. Her dad was a totally normal dude. His name was Richard, and he held a job as a pilot, which is definitely a job that requires mental stability. Jessica came over to my house as well, and her dad would always come pick her up after the play date, so he was familiar with where I lived. In I think 2nd or 3rd grade, Jessica moved away to live with her mom. I didn't fully understand what was going on as a child, and I still don't know what happened, but something had gone wrong with her father. We didn't hear much from Jessica, but around her birthday, the following year, Richard invited our group of girls over for a surprise birthday party. We arrived at the party and were waiting for Jessica so we could surprise her, but Jessica never showed up. We were just hanging out with her dad for a while. As a child, this didn't seem as weird as it does to me now. When our parents picked us up, we obviously told them what happened, and we didn't hang out with Jessica or Richard again. After that, some of the girls started receiving presents from Richard at their homes. I never received them, but my mother told me about it years later. The presents usually consisted of cheap jewelry and notes. I have no idea what the notes said, but I'm not sure that I want to. After this, Richard goes away. My mom later told me he was in a mental institution. Years go by. I completely forget about the whole situation. Then, in the winter of 2013, I was out of town for a cheer competition. I was scrolling through Facebook one night, when all of a sudden a new group chat popped up with 5 girls from my elementary school. I had not kept in touch with any of them, so this was weird. The chat was about how they received messages from Richard on Facebook. I checked the other folder of my Facebook messages, and sure enough, I had some too. I had a variety of messages that did not make a lot of sense, including some strange poems. Many of the messages were descriptions of dreams he had about me. Though some of them were nonsense, others were understandable enough to come across as sexually violent and threatening. I don't feel comfortable sharing some of the more explicit messages, but here are a couple of the shorter and less scary ones. Hi, little girl from not long ago. Pristine of pristineness, I want you, I want you, I want you. We're gonna have planets to go to someday, provided you don't melt them first. I'm so proud of you. Stay happy, and I haven't found a way to keep you all off my mind. I can't see the planets till I make you all mine. You're just so rough, and oh, just so fine. As if I'm there, my love's for you I share. It's so indefinite, for it's all about you, that I only care. Oh my goodness, you're all my whipping cream containers. I clicked on Richard's Facebook profile, and his whole profile was dedicated to us 5 girls. He didn't have any friends added, so clearly nobody had seen it. Unfortunately, we didn't have very good security settings on Facebook. He had saved dozens of photos of us, and then reposted them with nonsensical and inappropriate captions. The captions ranged from essays about his love for us, to a 1-sentence caption that simply said, "She is so ugly." Here are some of the shorter photo captions. Emily, hopefully, and not too soon, I'm gonna find out where you're YXX8511. And I'm going to show up as a man, then knock on your front doorstep and bite your bottom lip off before you can say a word. Sierra, because my initial euphoria turns into sunken depression when I realize that there's nothing I can do about anything besides you, because you're inside me and I can't get you out of my mind. I love you so much. Melissa, can I paint your picture? And I want to lift you around to see how heavy you are. And we'll go for a drive on Hollywood Drive with the windows rolled down so we can get a crystal clear view. God, give it up. Like as if I'm going to pretend I like it besides you're just yanking on my strings. Because time after time, it's always the same common denominator, which I noticed how come you all pluck your eyebrows. But I do pretend I have favorite things. But in reality, I don't need them. And I'm a good liar because I have a criminal mind like yours. We were all freshly 18 at the time and didn't know what to do. So our moms contacted the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They told us not to block Richard on Facebook, but not to reply as the messages could be used as evidence. He continued to send us messages every single day, and we shared the screenshots with each other in the group chat and sent them off to the RCMP. He had several different Facebook accounts that were all variations of his name, along with one randomly named Esteban. One of the girls got in touch with Jessica to find out if she still had contact with her father. She only saw him on supervised visits every once in a while. She was very embarrassed and apologized a lot. She was a super sweet girl, and obviously none of us were upset at her in any way. Eventually, Richard was charged with 5 counts of criminal harassment. He pled guilty and went to jail for around 5 months. When he got out, there was still a no-contact order in place, meaning that he could not contact any of us girls or come within a certain radius of our homes. He was not allowed to use the internet either. I'm not sure how all of this works, but this is what the constable handling the case told me. However, not surprisingly, he started contacting us on Facebook again. He went back to jail for breaching his probation. It was the summer of 2015 and he got out again. I started receiving more messages. I immediately wrote on the group chat to see if the other girls had gotten anything. They hadn't. It was just me. I immediately contacted the police. It seems they had forgotten to include my name on the no contact order. He knew not to contact the other girls, but thought it was still safe for him to contact me. This time things got worse. I had just started working at a new job, and being the idiot that I am, I had my workplace public on my Facebook profile. One day I came into work and there was a package waiting for me. I was obviously confused because I would never order something to be delivered to my work. I opened it up with my managers, and there was weed inside along with a disc with encryption software on it. He had mailed me weed to my work. I knew immediately that this was him, and awkwardly explained the situation to my managers, who thought it was hilarious. The security in my office tower was alerted and given a photo of him. They began walking me to my bus stop after my shifts. It was scary knowing that he knew where I worked. At this point, I hadn't seen Richard in years, but it was clear that he was mentally unwell. I had absolutely no idea what he was capable of, or what his motives were. The RCMP did not seem to take this case very seriously, and they moved very slowly, passing the case around to various officers. Meanwhile, I was terrified. I could hardly walk down my street at night without freaking out. Every time somebody knocked on my door while I was home alone, I would drop whatever I was doing and hide under the kitchen counters. I had not moved since I was a child, so it was very possible that he remembered where I lived. The packages kept coming. I received more weed in several different forms, including cookies, what appeared to be cocaine, and a key to his apartment, along with some miscellaneous items. I opened all of the packages at the police station. One of the packages included a USB stick with a bunch of audio recordings on them, but I decided it was better for me not to listen to them. The return address on the packages was to a random P.O. box in another city that did not belong to Richard, and no fingerprints were found on the packages. During all of this, the Facebook messages remained constant. Luckily, in one of the messages, he informed me that he had sent me drugs and the key along with his home address. This confirmed that the packages were from him. He was charged again. I received a subpoena in the mail to appear as a witness in court. However, he once again pled guilty and never got to go to court. I was actually a bit disappointed, as I thought seeing him in person would provide me with some sort of closure. He's still locked up somewhere as I'm writing this, but I still get scared walking at night or when somebody knocks on the door. The police provided me zero information on where he was being held or when he would be released. I feel like I'm just waiting for the day that he will contact me again. It seems as if every time I think it's over, it isn't. If I do hear from him again, I'll be sure to post an update. This situation could have been a lot worse, and as far as I know, he did not physically follow me around or anything. I strongly encourage you all to make sure your Facebook privacy settings are as private as possible. So I've mentioned this before and people always ask questions, so I figured I would post it here. When I was a little kid, my father was diagnosed with schizophrenia. It quickly became very severe. He started thinking the FBI was after him, becoming incredibly paranoid. He got into legal trouble for abusing 911. From what my mom told me, he started accruing a variety of really sketchy friends, other severely mentally ill people, drunks, druggies, prostitutes, other homeless people. One day he didn't come home from work. This was before cell phones, but when my mom called his work, they said he had left and everything seemed normal. She called our family members, some of his real friends from before he got sick, coworkers, and a ton of other people. Nobody knew anything. Nobody had seen him. When he didn't show up at home by bedtime, my mom called the police and explained to them that my dad had left without any of his belongings, except for his wallet and his car, and nobody knew where he was. They eventually agreed to allow her to file a missing persons case. His car was found abandoned outside a shopping center 2 weeks later in New Jersey, 200 miles away from our home in Maryland. Since then, there have been no developments in the case. No activity on his credit cards. No family or friends have heard from him. He's considered an endangered missing, and the detective on the case suspects foul play. Fast forward 15 years. I'm attending college 6 hours away from home, living in a rented house off campus with a few friends. While I'm at class one day, 2 disheveled-looking middle-aged men knock on my door and in a very polite tone ask for me by my full name, saying they need to speak to me, that they are friends of my father. My roommate said they seemed friendly enough at that point, and he started asking them normal questions. Who they were, if they wanted to leave a message, how I could contact them when I got home. They gave really dodgy answers and kept turning the questions back on me. Where was I? Could they get my cell phone number? Was the car in the driveway with the Maryland tags mine? My roommate told me that he started getting horrible vibes from them and said he was going to call the police, slamming the door on them. They immediately bolted. My roommate worked with a sketch artist affiliated with the detective on my dad's case. Nobody recognizes those guys. We never saw them or heard from them again. So creepy guys who potentially know something about my dad's disappearance, let's not meet.